Welcome to the Business Vitality Podcast. My name is Catherine Cantey. I am the host and an executive coach. I work with teams, individuals, and leaders to help create measured leadership change. We do that using practical applications, and our clients are creating 100% measured results as seen by those around them. Not necessarily what I think or what they think, but what the other people are seeing. And they are being recognized for the hard work that they're doing. If you're interested in learning more about some of the work that we're doing, you can learn more at catherinecantey.com. I would love for you to subscribe to this show, to Business Vitality. This is my way to continue to pay it forward and share business best practices. Stay tuned and listen to the interview. Thanks for being here. Stephen Kohler, you are the founder and CEO of Audira Labs, found on the web at audiralabs.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Catherine, thanks so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you so much. And so, Stephen, at a very high level, can you talk about what Audira Labs offers?
I'd be happy to. We are in the business of growing leaders, and we come to leadership development in kind of a unique way, Catherine. We love to use music as a lens that we can all become better leaders. And so we like to say that we enable leaders, teams, and organizations to amplify their leadership. And we do that in a couple ways. We do one-on-one executive coaching, and we do team development workshops with a bit of a twist. We love to bring music in a fun and creative way for leaders and teams to learn how to become stronger leaders. And we literally offer the opportunity for leaders to, learn, practice, and apply leadership concepts using musical concepts and instruments. So it's a blast.
Yeah, I have a question for you about that because I had my own intimidating experience going into one of these workshops, not yours, but just one. And before I get to that, I wanted to ask you, it seems to be safe to say that communication is vital for any business. And that's one of your specialties is communication. And you write about it and you talk about it. But could you talk about it a little bit right now about how communication is really vital in business today and how you're able to relay that back to your clients?
Absolutely. I'm going to start with a quote. There's a famous quote, and I forget the author, but he says, one of the biggest misconceptions in a conversation is that actual communication has occurred. And what the author is getting at is that a lot of people talk at each other, but they're not really communicating. And what we found at Audira is that the root of a lot of those challenges in communication, Catherine, start with a lack of listening. And so as an aside to our own business, Audira in Latin means to listen. And so what we believe is one of the most foundational leadership principles we can all continue to get at to enable greater communication and business outcomes is to learn how to truly actively listen. And so, and one of the ways we do that at Audira is obviously leveraging a lot of the tools and techniques and music we learn through ear training, but it all starts with listening in our mind.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of gold in that. So thank you for sharing. And so, when I was doing a little bit of research on you, I saw that you're doing these workshops that are, to take some of your words, harnessing the power of music to inspire collaboration, cultivate accountability, and align individual performance with organizational purpose. And so it's not just your theory on this, but there's research that backs this up. And I shared earlier that I went into one of these workshops, and this was when I was in Nashville for a work trip. And we walked in, and they had musicians and guitars and instruments. And here I am, this corporate banker. I'm like, oh no, I think I'm in the wrong room. And they said, no, this is the session you're supposed to be in. I thought, oh, this is going to be painful. I can't sing. I don't know anything about music. I'll listen to it, but I don't know anything about it. And so it was scary, but by the end of it, it was the most incredible, unique experience that I've ever had as far as like these breakout sessions and learning opportunities. So can you talk about this? Because I don't think a lot of people are familiar with incorporating music and listening skills and communication. I just think it's fascinating. And if you could talk about it, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. First of all, I'm so curious to learn more, maybe later, about the experience that you had, because we're always trying to learn what participants get. What we believe music can do, and by the way, that we start with everybody is creative. I think many of us have a narrative in our heads that we're not creative, we're not musical, we can't be musical, right? So we start with the idea that whether we allow ourselves to believe it or not, we're all creative in some way. We also believe that music truly, and the data shows this, Catherine, that music is a universal language. You can be on the continent of Africa, Australia, China, US, and the styles are different, but music is a common way that humans can connect and have for thousands of years. So it's a universal language. It unlocks what we might call the right part of our brain, the intuitive part of our brain that those of us in corporate leadership roles sometimes don't get enough opportunity to leverage. And why does that matter? Well, it helps us become better communicators. It helps us become more effective at collaborating. It allows us to be more creative for innovation and drive business results. So we found there's a lot of power in using music as a lens. We've also found that there's a lot of direct parallels between the concepts that we study in music to actual business. So one of the first things that you might encounter in a team environment or business is people kind of rowing in different directions, and we call that lack of alignment. Well, one of the concepts in music, of course, is we can talk about things of rhythm and tempo, and that identifying ways that we can kind of lock into that groove together, right? We also talk about how teams and organizations can become more effective at communicating, as you said, and collaborating. And so one of the techniques in music that is very foundational is this idea of ear training and active listening. We can then build on that through literally the idea in music of harmony and harmonization, right? Where we're building on what other people think through yes-anding. And then, as you mentioned, the kind of accountability and empowerment, and there's this idea in music of, kind of playing your part and allowing others to play theirs and being very clear about kind of roles and responsibility in the ensemble, right? So there's a lot of parallels that we think. And what shows up for participants is they start very much, as you may have, from, oh, I'm not creative, I can't, to, oh my gosh, this was transformative, what's possible, right? And again, these are non-musicians, right? So we love kind of seeing that transformation, that awakening for people.
Yeah, it sounds like what I always call small wins. And so you let them kind of dabble in an area that they haven't played in before, they're not familiar with, and you allow them to have that small win and success. And then it allows them to kind of build the confidence to be able to maybe, take it to innovation or wherever it needs to go next. So I think that is an incredible opportunity. And I think active listening, that really hit home for me. Do you mind just kind of explaining what active listening is, what your perception is on that?
I'd love to. Let me back into that by saying I think all of us struggle today in today's society with listening now more than ever. And the reason for that, I've found, is that we are so overwhelmed by external stimuli, largely, at least in our culture, of digital media, texts, emails, phone calls, video chats. Like we've got something like 9 channels of digital communication hitting us, bombarding us at any second. So naturally, we're going to be distracted. That's above and beyond kind of our normal things that we have going in our lives, right? So we've become, I think, even more distracted and overwhelmed when we're trying to communicate and connect with one another. So that presents an opportunity, and that gets in our way. That gets in our way of actually connecting with others, I think, having positive outcomes with our business. So we believe that becoming stronger at deeper listening is more important than ever, right? And so we have a methodology that we built on from a few different organizations that we call kind of the 3 modes of active listening. Mode 1 is where most of us sit, where we are very much stuck in our own heads. We are thinking about, we're thinking about our world, what's going on from us, the meeting we just had, the meeting we're going to have, our laundry list, which is to say we're not thinking about those around us, and we're not aware of the space that we're in, the environment, the audience, what have you. So our opportunity is to expand out of level 1, get to mode 2, where we start to get out of our own head, if you will, and start to truly be aware of those that we're talking to in our environment. One of the traps, though, Catherine, at that level that we all fall into is what we call listening with the intent to respond. So we'll be nodding our head, we'll be saying, but we're not really with the other person. We're just cueing, ready to say, oh yeah, let me tell you about what I think, right? Or the classic, yeah, but. So we're starting to get into listening there, but we're not really there. So level 3 or mode 3 is really where we all want to aspire to, right? And I'm not saying we're all so good at this, I'm still aspiring, but this is where we're fully aware of the other people around. We're truly curious. We're not listening with the intent to respond. We have an open mind. We have what the Buddhists call kind of a learner's mindset or beginner's mind. We're not trying to prove to the other person how smart we are. We're not trying to convince them to see our way. We're just truly open. We're also aware of what's around us. That could be other people in the room. That could be the mood, the vibe, the intuition, right? I mean, that could be anything, but we've got kind of a 360-degree or full spectrum listening. Why is this so important? Because most of us are oblivious most of the time of all of this. And so we miss things. We miss what other people are trying to convey. We miss what's happening around us. We miss, and very practically in a corporate environment, we miss what the customer is really trying to tell us. We miss what our employees are trying to tell us or what they need, right? We may not even be paying attention to what we need, right? So anyway, a lot of that lack of listening gets in our way, and we believe there's real power in kind of getting deeper in that.
Okay, so I try to get to level 3, mode 3. I know I'm stuck in 1. I tried not to interrupt you. I'm mode 2 here, as my brain was like, I got to slow down. Are there 1 or 2 things that folks can begin to kind of just pick up to try to get to mode 3, where we're aware of everything and we're not trying to interrupt and we're present in the moment?
I love the question. Yes, and much like a musician, I would say I would invite all of us to take this idea of, first of all, give yourself a break. We're all in this crazy world right now, overwhelmed by digital media. So it's natural that our brain's going to be overwhelmed and distracted. So be self-compassionate. That's number 1. Number 2 is practicing what we call noticing. What do I mean by that? I mean, notice where I'll use the metaphor of a microphone, Catherine. Where metaphorically, where is your microphone pointed? Is it pointed at yourself, so you're thinking about your own stuff? Is it sort of pointed at the other person, but you're really thinking about what you're going to say? Or is it really kind of like an omnidirectional microphone where you're really listening? Don't be judgmental if you're still stuck in your head. That's normal. Then, so number 1, notice where the microphone is. Number 2 is be intentional about where you want it pointed. Do you care about what the other person's saying? Do you care what's happening in your environment? Maybe you don't. But should you want to actually listen, then gently kind of nudge the microphone first towards the other person or the people around you without kind of any narratives about what you want to convince them of. And then gently kind of open the field to that, and keep practicing moving that microphone back, because you'll get distracted back. Your thoughts will take you back into your own internal thing. So just gently keep coming back. And as you practice that, it's going to become like a musical instrument. You're going to get a little bit stronger every week.
Right. This reminds me of meditation and just trying to practice meditation. And, I try, and I'm not the best at this, but I've been dabbling in it for, I don't know, a little over a year or so. And when you meditate, you're supposed to, clear your mind. And here I am catching myself thinking of my to-do list and all this stuff. And so, first of all, self-compassion, just give myself a break is what this reminds me of. And then noticing and being able to get back and become present. It sounds simple, but it's hard in the beginning when you've never done it before. So I think the self-compassion and the practicing, the noticing and the sharing of the microphone are wonderful, examples of how you can begin to hit that mode 3 for the active listening. So thank you for breaking it down.
Absolutely. And I'll give you a classic example that one of my coaches once gave me, and I think we can all relate. Imagine you're in a meeting, meeting with your peers. Let's say your boss comes in with the agenda for the meeting. The classic trap is that person walks in with their agenda and maybe somebody's had a horrible time that morning and they're in tears. The trap is that the leader comes in with the agenda and just starts talking. They're focused on kind of what's there, and they're unaware of what's happening around them, right? So the leader that's listening at level 3 notices what's happening in the room, so to speak, throws out the agenda and says, let's address what's present, right? Yeah.
That's where, significant items can take place, is when you can actually be present and be able to see that, and to be able to reset what the intention is for the meeting, because who knows what that could have snowballed into it if it wasn't addressed. So I think that's important for leadership. And, we're talking about leadership, and I saw that you wrote a paper on the value of leadership, and you had some incredible, stats that go along with it. And one of them stuck out. And so some of the stats were engaged companies grow profits as much as 3 times faster than the competition when you've got this value of leadership in place. Millennial turnover cost companies over $30 billion annually. And then executives estimate an ROI of over 5.7x their initial investment. And the one that sticks out to me right now is millennials turnover cost the company over $30 billion annually. Can you talk about that? Because, I work with organizations, and millennials are in the workforce and they're adapting, but I think the managers are having to adapt, and they just sometimes chalk it up to being, well, they're a millennial. I'm like, that's just not acceptable. We can't just say that. So how can we keep the engagement and reduce the turnover cost? Because I really think they're out doing incredibly talented things, and we need to keep that talent in the organization. So what are your thoughts around that? And do you mind just kind of expanding on that?
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing this up. I think it's more topical than ever. And let me start with, I think, a topic that many of us are seeing in the news. As a result of the outcome of the pandemic, there's been this massive impact on, quite frankly, the workforce, at least in our country, that's being labeled as the Great Resignation. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a huge headline that employees of organizations are telling all of us, regardless of whether they're millennials, Gen X, boomers. And I think what the pandemic has done, Catherine, is helped all of us recognize, really step back and say, what's meaningful to me in my life? How do I want to be spending the very limited amount of time I have on this planet? And if I am with an organization whose culture doesn't align with my values, or I'm working with people that I don't connect with, is it really worth it? Oh, by the way, I may have options now that I didn't say 18 months ago with organizations that are willing to hire me virtually, even if they're halfway around the world. I don't have to come in and maybe work in the same way that I used to. So this has created a huge dynamic shift. Why does this matter to organizations from a business perspective? Well, bottom line is they now, I believe, have a challenge, if you will, and an opportunity to worry about attracting, developing, and retaining employees now more than ever. So I think, coming back to the theme of listening, what organizations can do, whether it's for millennial employees or any generation, is really listen carefully. First of all, listen to what their potential employees that they want to hire or existing employees really value. The kind of values that are important to them as employees, the kind of benefits, the kind of culture, the kind of work-life balance that they want. Listen to that, integrate it, apply that in a way that aligns to the business objectives. I believe that will not only help attract really powerful talent, it will also help keep people there too. I think once they're in the door, organizations also have to remember that it's important to keep developing them through leadership training, development, coaching. That's one of the biggest things that comes out on surveys is why people leave, is a sense of not feeling valued or aligned, but also not feeling like they're being developed. Right. And that can also include career discussions that a lot of organizations don't spend enough time. So I think all of these things speak to the importance of really listening to what employees are looking for now, being flexible in terms of designing a work-life balance that works, providing development and training opportunities, and continue to be flexible with wherever these employees are.
I'm working with one company, and it's been pleasantly surprising for them to come to the realization that they have a younger talent that's out there. They're in their young 20s, 22 or so, and been with the company for 4 years. So they've been there for a while and they're growing with it. And the managers are like, they handle these objections and customer challenges exceptionally well. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, when you were that age, didn't you want to be given that opportunity too? And then they kind of respond and kind of reflect and go, yeah, you're probably right. So, we quickly forget that we were, wanting those same challenges and opportunities, and they're responding beautifully to what the market needs. And I think it's exciting to see that, and that younger workforce that's coming out, and it keeps them engaged because they're handling these challenges, and it grows them within that organization. So Yeah, we may see this great resignation, like what we're talking about, but also I think there's a great opportunity with the millennials and what they're willing to do to just drive forward with what's out here. So I
And
think those are great insights.
I think to your point, I think the younger generations, let's say millennials, have taught the rest of us, and I'm raising my hand here, new ways to think about our relationship with work. I think for many of us, we were brought up in a culture that you simply you put in as much time as needed and kind of work ourselves to death, quite frankly. And then after 40 years, we retire. But it's not so much about fulfillment. It's not about work-life balance. Work comes first. I think the younger generation has really helped challenge a lot of those paradigms, particularly as a result of the Great Resignation. Say, look, it doesn't have to be like that. Work can be fulfilling. We can have work-life balance. How might that look?
So, okay, you talk about work-life balance, and I think that's extremely important. So as we kind of wrap this up, I have seen that the businesses that are remaining sustainable and viable for the long term, they have work-life balance in place. They're not getting burned out. They're able to come back refreshed. They're able to give themselves breaks without feeling that pressure. And I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts around that work-life balance, and does it exist? And maybe some tips on those that are listening.
Yeah, I love that. To this, I'm even thinking about the language. I think some people are saying, the idea of work-life balance is a misnomer. We need to find a way, because it is a digital world. It's like work-life integration. So how do we find a better way to integrate work and life? From a practical perspective, what I've seen a lot of organizations do, again, in partnership with employees, because they start by listening. They say, what's most important to you, the employee? And they've almost kind of created kind of a customized menu for their employee population. That can be everything from flexible work hours. It obviously is a huge, one of the biggest shifts is where people are living and where they're working, right? And very pragmatically, how many hours, if at all, they ever need to go in an office again. It can include, in some cases, what's called work sharing, where if you're a part-time employee, you can actually share roles and hours with somebody else and do trade-offs, things like that. Some organizations have done unlimited PTO. So it's a blank check. You can take as much PTO as you need. And here's what we would ask for you in terms of, your accountabilities. We don't care when you do them. We don't care where you do them. We don't, it could be 2 a.m, right? Whatever works for you. And you can have unlimited PTO, right? So I think a lot of those organizations are finding really creative ways to find ways that work for the employee.
So that makes me think of a lady. I've got an assistant, and I always find it odd. She sends me emails at 2 a.m, but she's a mom at home with baby. And I just need some data stuff, keyed up, and I just send it to her, and I don't really care when it gets done. I just need it by the end of the week. And she sends it to me. And then of course I'm like, what are you doing at 2 a.m? She's like, the baby's up. I can't do anything. So I'll just sit there and type up your notes, and I can still get the other stuff done during the day. And I thought, well, that's genius, because I don't really care when you do it. I just wanted it by the end of the week. So it pops up at 2 a.m, and everybody's happy. So, you really got to get creative, which ties back into the music, to get the flow going and the rhythm, to be able to just kind of get those juices going, to think outside the box. So I think that's wonderful insights that you've shared. And Stephen, if somebody's interested in taking the next steps with you, do you mind to kind of share how to get in touch with you and what's the best next step?
I'd love that. Yes. Easiest place to start is audiralabs.com, our website. Check us out. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Email skohler@audiralabs.com. We look forward to jamming with you.
Awesome. So Stephen Kohler, you are the founder and CEO of Audira Labs, found on the web at audiralabs.com. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Catherine. It was an honor.
Thanks for listening to the episode. If you like it, please subscribe, share this episode or this show with other people around you. The greatest form of a compliment is a referral. I really appreciate them. And if you think that you want to learn more about some of the work we're doing, I encourage you to reach out to catherinecantey.com. You can schedule a call or just continue to read articles and information that we post out there. Thank you so much for being here.